what does an ideal interaction look like, right? Because yesterday what we talked about are all the masculine qualities that you want to cultivate over time. And some of these things are going to be, manifestations of those masculine qualities. Some of them will be more, direct, some more indirect manifestations. Like some of the honest signals we're going to talk about, like tonality and stuff, which we touched on yesterday, is obviously a more direct manifestation. Flirting and stuff, more indirect. But once you have this overview coupled with the qualities that you want to develop, so this is like a kind of short-term basis. What are the steps I need to take? What are the elements I need to include, I guess, right? And of course, you'll be more and more cognizant of them as time goes on, right? The reason I say that it's more outer game focused is because some of them are mechanical elements, like how to stand, how to, how to build physical rapport, right? Like handshake versus a high five versus a spin, right? They're more mechanical. How to be flirty, right? How to create a dramatic effect in an interaction, right? To inject emotion into it. So let's get into it. And then you'll be able to start not only injecting this into your interactions, but also when we do the review today and when you're out today, you'll kind of, in the back of your mind, be looking for it in the interaction. I'll be like, see how this is a bit dry, this is a bit monotonous. Oh, you could have injected sarcasm here, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So, what are the elements of a good interaction? All right, so first of all, the nonverbals, which we talked about yesterday, right? The honest signals, the more important honest signals, right? So good tonality, slow, low, loud, down talk, right? I'll be repeating this like most of the boot camp. Slow, low means like more resonant tonality, and loud, you're projecting your voice. You're not yelling, you're projecting, right? And we'll do vocal exercises about that. Strong eye contact, controlled but varied facial expressions, and you started getting the hang of that yesterday. Slower, relaxed, and composed body language, and dominant posture. All right, so we touched on that yesterday. Those are the nonverbals, and they're very important, but we're not going to focus on as much on them today, even though they're in many ways some of the more important ones. Okay, so nonverbals. Next, again, something we spoke about yesterday, being grounded and non-reactive. Again, something you're going to need to cultivate over time, right? We talked about this in depth, by learning how to make decisions in less than ideal situations, learning how to handle pressure, et cetera, strengthening your sense of reality, right? Being grounded and non-reactive. Next is having a fun vibe. Okay? And a fun or flirtatious vibe. And that has to do a lot with building sexual tension. Now, so does body language and facial expressions, but these are more like the verbals that you're using to amplify your already attractive facial expressions. So, for example, if I'm sitting like this, right, and I have this kind of facial expression, and I look very relaxed and composed, that already in itself can build sexual tension. Now, if I add to that, so what is it about pineapples that you like, right? Then I'm kind of even amping up the seductive dynamic. That makes sense? Do you understand why that facial expression is kind of seductive? It's like a bit of a knowing smirk. You're squinting the eyes a little bit. Remember how we said narrower eyes versus more wider eyes, which are like fear, confusion? Yeah. Okay. So body language, facial expression, very powerful, right? Slower movements. If I take a sip of my coffee, you see how the slowness makes it so seductive? Okay. Um, so grounded, non-reactive, fun, flirtatious vibe. So what are some of the verbal things that you can do to spice it up, to be flirtatious? Drama, saying things for dramatic effect. Okay, so how dare you wear gray today, right? By the way, all of these have an underlying element of humor in them, right? Because you can't really be dramatic when you just met someone, right? It's not like it's your girlfriend, you guys are having a fight. So what you're doing is you're simulating a dramatic conversation, which usually carries a lot of emotions, right? But there's an underlying element of humor, which shows her it's not that serious. It's playful. How dare you wear gray tonight? Okay? Or if she spills something, God, you're fucking embarrassing. Why do I even take you out? Right? That starts to create sexual tension. Okay. What is sexual tension, by the way? We should have, I guess, started with that. What do you think sexual tension is?
It's like a feeling
Of tension.
tension.
But what do you think that is? What does it mean when there is sexual tension between two people? What does that really mean?
So they're like,
Why is there tension?
it's like some chemistry or something?
Yeah, but why is there tension? What do you think is the not because of the fact that they have chemistry, but why do they call it tension?
You're pulling.
It's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
The tension is a result of the fact that these two people seemingly know or can feel that they want to have sex with one another, but in this current moment they're not. So they're kind of dancing around the issue. They're skirting around it, not the issue. They're skirting around the idea of the fact that of having sex with one another. Right? It's almost like, we know we want to. You and I both know we want to, but right now we can't. Circumstances are such that we can't, and as a result, the tension builds and builds, especially if you haven't made out or anything. There's no release of that tension, right? So it's like very sexually charged, and there's no release for it, right? So drama, sarcasm. If you're like lounging and you're supposed to be working, I could be like, "Damn, you're working hard today, man." Right? Sarcasm. And you can use that in field, whatever the situation is. Like if the girl's wearing a really funky outfit and it's the weekend after Halloween, you can be like, "I like your outfit, but Halloween was last week." Okay. Challenge. You challenge a girl, right? What does you challenging a girl make a girl want to do? Prove herself. Invest emotionally into the interaction. Let's say she's like, "Oh, like, blah, 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 I studied French, or I'm French," but you can be like, "Bullshit, you don't speak French. Come on." She's like, "Yeah, I do, I speak French." "No, you don't. Let me hear your French." It's not like you're doubting her, right? You're saying, "No, prove it." Right? And she's going to then have to invest if she wants to, if she cares enough. So you're challenging her. Commanding. To be commanding. By the way, a lot of these things do still, in some sense, convey some of your masculine qualities. Right? So let's look at commanding, for example. Like basically it means telling someone what to do. Right? So what does it say about you if you're commanding someone? That means you're a leader, you're confident, you're assertive, you're dominant. Right? So let's imagine a couple of scenarios. One is a serious one. You're telling a girl, let's say she walks into your house, right? And she needs to take her shoes off. You can be like, "Hey, can you take your shoes off?" Right? Or she's, she's taking her time and you guys are in a rush. Be like, "Come on, hurry up, let's go." Right? Or it could be something more playful, right? Because initially you're going to have more opportunities to be playful. than to actually like command someone, right? So let's say she wants to get a hot dog at the end of the night, and you're, let's say, like a health guy, right? You're like, no, you're not putting that trash in your body. So you're not like straight up like not allowing it, but you also kind of don't want her to do it. You could be like the vendor, no, you're not selling her any hot dogs, right? It's very serious. It's attractive. It builds tension. It's like this guy's like being a man. Tell me what to do. You know, girls like to be submissive, right? Okay, next, being playful and teasing. Well, some of these things already have playfulness and teasing embedded into it. You know, you can just be like, yeah, nice shirt. Let's say if she's wearing some funky shirt. You never want to tease to a point where it feels as if you're putting the girl down. Where it's too much. You don't want to come off as insecure. Okay? Because that's what it essentially communicates when you're like going out of your way to really put someone down. Like when some people are like really cocky. It says more about them than about the person that they're like teasing. Teases should be very lighthearted, playful, never malicious. Okay. Next, getting sexual is a way of building the tension. So remember how I was like sitting with that smirk and and she's like, "What's your favorite fruit? Pineapples." Oh yeah? What do you love about pineapples? You can inject that in like random situations. Now keep in mind, you don't want to inject you don't want to sexualize the conversation prematurely or when you haven't already established a kind of a fun, adventurous, flirtatious frame already. Can't just like all of a sudden, be like dull and monotone and all of a sudden be like, oh yeah? It's going to be super out of place, super creepy, super weird. Okay? But at some point you can get like super sexual. Like in so many random situations if she's like, I'm from Germany. Oh yeah? You're from the Deutschland. It's like, what does it even really mean? Nothing. You're just like being playful and sexual. Okay? I was thinking of that girl in red yesterday. Next, flipping the script. What does it mean to flip the script? It means to frame her as the aggressor. Frame her as like the one chasing you, the one you should be scared of or cautious with. So sometimes I'll, when I'm taking girls home, I'll be like, okay, but you're not like a jewel thief, or you're not an art thief, are you? Like, so suddenly in her mind, she's not as concerned about going home with a stranger. She's now wondering, why is this guy worried I'm going to steal his art? So it's like kind of playful, but she's kind of like, what the fuck? Or it could be like, but you're not going to roofie me, right? Or if it's during the day, you could be like, if you're walking with her, you could be like, but don't do anything weird, or don't do anything crazy, but don't embarrass me, right? And it's extra funny because you're like being all serious about it. It's like, whoa, this is really a concern. So flipping the script. So next, and this ties in with, the fun vibe, but next, you want to have a range of emotions in your interactions. Okay, and this is going to be very important for you because, so yesterday I saw more of a range, but generally you're kind of like a quiet, introverted, sometimes, monotone guy. A healthy interaction should be like a movie. There should be a range of emotions. There should be some laughter. There should be some drama. There should be some like serious discussion, some rapport building, some suspense maybe, right? That's what really engages you. And it's not even the emotions themselves, it's the change in emotions. It's like, I'm like, let's say I'm all like, I don't know, goofy and fun, and then all of a sudden I'm switching to, talking about, I don't know, the political situation in the Middle East. And then all of a sudden I'm getting all sexual about pineapples, right? So it's that change in the emotions that's like, whoa, This is engaging. This is stimulating. That makes sense? Yeah. So, what are the different emotions that you can help elicit? So, you can be indifferent and blasé, or you can be enthused. So, what's indifferent and blasé? Say, yeah, I'm down. I'm down to like get some pizza, like whatever. Like if you guys want to go. Right, enthused is like, yo, dude, let's get some fucking pizza up in here. Right? You're enthused. Too much enthused, not good. Too much indifferent, not good. Firm versus chill. Chill, it's like, not quite like indifferent, but like, yeah, what's up, man? I'm good. Yeah, we can go to the club if you want. Da 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 da. Firm is like, all right, you got to take off your shoes and we need to go over the itinerary right now. All right, so what's the itinerary? So we got, we're flying in tomorrow. It's very like boom, boom, boom. Like, I mean business, right? Take your shoes off. All right, let's go. We got to go, right? Sexual. We talked about sexual, okay? Different emotion. Fun and silly versus serious. So fun and silly could be like, being over dramatic or being like goofy, boop, 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 boop. Whatever your version of funny or goofy is. And serious is, it doesn't have to be like firm or serious in like a really serious way, but just like having a more serious discussion about something, whether it's about politics or, I don't know, fitness. Yeah, man, so like, when I go to the gym, I do this and this. What does your workout look like? Okay, cool, blah, blah, blah. Maybe inject a little joke here and there, but like generally you're kind of like discussing something. Dramatic, right? We talked about creating drama, right? How dare you? Passionate. Speaking about something with passion. There's something about skiing that's just so fucking liberating, man. It's just, you feel like you're just on the edge. You're just like weaving in and out, and there's just so much adrenaline. It's me talking about skiing, let's say, with passion, or whatever it is you're passionate about. Very attractive. Yeah, and just generally, you can have a more active versus a more passive style of game, right? This is just to kind of like sum up the range of emotions. Like you could sometimes be actively gaming, like creating flirtatious situations, being sexual, blah, blah. And sometimes you can just kind of kick back, relax, not say much. It's okay to take pauses. It's okay to kind of come back to the interaction. We'll talk more about the pace of an interaction, but sometimes it's not the things that you do, it's the things you don't do. Because what happens in those situations, you create like a vacuum or a void for her to step in and invest more, for her to breathe, for her to miss you. It's not just like overwhelm, overstimulate, right? Okay. So, range of emotions. So next is comfort and rapport. So you're never really going to build a strong enough connection with someone. And by the way, there's overlap between all these sections, but you're never really going to build a strong enough connection with someone or a sense of rapport or a sense of comfort if there's a lot of like fun and flirtatious, if the bulk of your dynamic is fun and flirtatious. You can't really connect with someone if you're putting on this like fun front the whole time, right? So you want to be vulnerable. You want to be real with people. Vulnerable is like a spectrum, right? You don't have to like talk about the intricacies of your family member's death necessarily, right? But you could maybe share something about how you're scared of public speaking, or I don't know, you got bullied maybe when you were younger. It depends. You don't want to unload your entire emotional baggage, but some vulnerability, some realness, some personal stuff, right, helps connect with someone. Okay? So sharing things, personal things, general things that you like. Maybe you're a Star Wars fan, or you really want to visit London sometime because you had this Mary Poppins book that your grandmother gave you. Whatever. Next, what's another way of building rapport? Moving around. Moving around the venue, going outside of the venue. Maybe there's like, I don't know, a convenience store around the corner and you guys want to grab some coconut water and come back. Or maybe you're trying to pull the girl and you're baby stepping it and you're saying, first let's get coconut water, then let's get some pizza, then let's go somewhere else. So when you're moving around, you and the girl are a unit where you guys are fixed and the environment is variable. So it kind of strengthens your bond. You're kind of moving through an environment that changes. Okay. What's another way? Another way is to discuss the environment, whether it's when you're moving or when you're actually in place. And the last one is time. The more time that passes, the stronger your connection grows. Imagine a scenario where you and a girl or you and a friend go for like a hike and you don't exchange a single word. Do you still think, let's say it's an hour hike and you see a bunch of like scenery and maybe you see a raccoon and a nice view and all that stuff. Do you think that you and this person will have built some form of a bond just because you experienced all that together?
Yeah.
Right? Even though you haven't exchanged a single word.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to put into perspective that like just doing something together and the environment changing can be very powerful. Sometimes it just means moving from the bar to the dance floor to the patio to the whatever. Going to check on your coat, the coat check. It all creates, and this is another thing, it's all a form of experience. Sometimes guys will say, don't buy girls drinks when you're at a venue, right? Which is kind of like old school thinking because like essentially what it means is don't pay for a girl's time. Don't right off the bat buy her a drink. But if you're having, let's say, a good time, you can easily invite a girl for a drink. Or you can go dance, or you can go check out the cactus in the corner. The point of this is to have experiences with the girl. Because experiences build the rapport. Make sense? Okay. So yesterday, for example, you were having a good time talking to that girl, and it was on, right? But imagine if you also went downstairs to check out the lower part of the hotel, and then maybe you guys we went across the street to go dancing. Imagine how much stronger the connection would have been by the end of the night. She feels like she's like spent all this time with you. All right. So next, physicality. Physicality is a very important component of building comfort in an interaction. Building comfort and amping up the sexual tension. Now, you could build some great sexual tension just through verbals and your vibe alone, but physicality could really amp it up and increase the level of comfort. Because the more comfortable she is with you physically, the more likely and the sooner she'll be comfortable to have sex with you. And it's just a nice thing to do in general. It's not like I'm doing this just so that it's faster to have sex with her. It's just like, it's just a form of connecting with people, right? If I'm like, come on, man, you're going to be all right, right? It's just, I could say that without touching you, but this increases a certain level of connection or connectivity, if you will, okay? And yeah, it's just good to learn how to be more physically expressive in general. And I think some cultures are more physically expressive. Maybe some aren't as much. But anyway, so we'll talk about all the different ways in which you can be physical during an interaction. And note, this is important, none of these can be too light or creepy, right? When you're being physical, it has to be very confidently felt. So you can't do anything like, yeah, right? Nothing weird like that. Or you're putting your arm around her. Like. Okay, so let's go through the range of things that you can do during interaction. So one, this is a standard one, an obvious one, handshake, right? Hello, nice to meet you. Okay. Next is a high five, right? Now you can do a high five to compliment her about something, right? So that's more like fitting. It's like, oh, you speak French? Nice. You're so cultured, you know? Or you can do it in almost like a random way, just to like connect. You know, sometimes I'll even open with that, right? I'll be like, you know, I'll come in and I'll even like start putting my arm up just to kind of give her a heads up that I'm coming, and and then I'm like, it's almost a form of being disarming. It's like I'm coming up and I'm like, what's going on? Or something like, you look so fucking Russian. It's like, why did I really give her the high five? Because I'm asking a question. It's not super fitting, but it's just like a form of hello. Okay. Next, handshake and spin. Now this is like something that a lot of guys overdo. So it's kind of like cheesy. I'm not a huge fan of it. If I do it sometimes, I might spin her all the way like this, and then I'll put her arm around me like this. Okay. And then you could, actually, you know what, let's do it this way. So you spin her, and then bam, and then you could almost just like continue the conversation. So why do you like dolphins? What is it about dolphins you like? Right? So suddenly it's kind of like funny and intimate, right? Next is a tap on the shoulder. Okay, so tap on the shoulder. Any questions?
It's a lot of shit.
Huh?
It's a lot of shit.
Yeah, and I mean, there's like little micro ones that you can do as well. Like if a girl's being cute, so you can like poke her on the nose, like boop, right? Like little silly things like this. You know, you could, if she's wearing any kind of jewelry or if she's got a tattoo, you could easily just be like, oh, is that a tattoo? What does that say? Right. So what's happening in that moment? You're touching her, right? And it's not like it's a trick, right? Like if you're genuinely curious about her tattoo or her jewelry, you can actually like look at it that way. And don't ask for permission. Don't be like, oh, is that jewelry? Can I like hold your hand? No, you just like take her hand and look at it. That's pretty much it. Okay. So next element, leadership. You want to always be leading in your interactions or your dates, right? Not in some kind of a over aggressive, like you're compensating for something, like over the top way where you're not letting the girl make any decisions. But generally, you should be the one taking the initiative on most fronts. Okay? So emotionally, let's physically, emotionally, verbally. Okay, so what does that mean? So physically, well, it means like, you know, moving her, leading, like deciding, and logistically, right? So deciding where you're going to go, right? Suggesting things, whether it's on a date or whether it's like, hey, let's move from the bar to the dance floor, okay? Verbally, you can decide which conversations you're going to have. Doesn't mean that you talk over the girl. Doesn't mean you don't let her decide what to talk about. But often people get stuck talking about certain topics and they're afraid to take the conversation in a different direction. Feel free, and we're going to talk about verbals in a second, but feel free to just take it in whatever direction you want, within reason, without being weird. Like if she's talking about, you know, how her mom passed away a few years ago, you know, you can't just like all of a sudden cut her off and be like, oh, the wine here is great, right? Okay, so you can talk, you can lead verbally, you can also lead things emotionally, right? So you can dictate the vibe. You can dictate if things are going to be sexual. You can dictate if things are going to be fun. You can dictate if things are going to be serious all of a sudden, right? You're creating that range of emotions. Now, of course, of course, the girl is contributing as well. But generally, people are pretty passive, right? And especially girls, they're going to kind of like go along. Like people play it safe, so they go along with the vibe that you dictate. So if you're going to start getting all sexual, making sexual comments, she's like, oh, I guess I have permission to be sexual too, right? Okay. So leadership also means dealing with obstacles, dealing with messiness at night if you're trying to pull. There's all kinds of chaos and commotion going on, right? Her friends are drunk and she wants to go home with you, but she has to stay at her cousin's place, or she has to give her friend her keys, and you have to kind of navigate all that and be creative. Just like in any tough situations in life, you have to kind of lead people out, make decisions. Make decisions in what we said yesterday, less than optimal circumstances, because that's usually how life is, less than optimal circumstances. You're never going to have like this, you're rarely going to have this like super convenient situation where it's this girl, she's on her own, she's super independent, she's down to fuck, and she's just like, let's go, right? There's always going to be some friends, some bullshit, some drama, okay? So dealing with shit, applying a closer mentality. It also means pushing things along. This is, I guess, it has to do more with persistence, okay? But moving things forward, okay? But in a way where it doesn't come off as overly aggressive. So whether it's at night where you're like trying to pull, or whether it's, let's say you're trying to pull at night and there's some kind of resistance or there's some kind of like obstacles to overcome, or during the day if you're trying to push for an Insta date, then you have to kind of like suggest things, move them along, be like, oh, I was actually going to grab a smoothie. I think there might be like a smoothie place just down there. Why don't you walk with me for like a couple of minutes, right? She's not going to be like, oh, hey, stranger I just met, do you want to like walk with me this way and grab a juice? No, right? So, and there is an element of persistence as well. I think that's a separate category in itself, is to know how to apply just the right amount of persistence. So you want to like push, you want to lead and you want to push things along, and if there's obstacles, you want to like apply a little bit of persistence and a little bit of convincing, right? Because, but never to a point where you're aggressive, because look, people generally want to have good experiences. People want to have fun, have sex, connect. They want to make purchases, right? But the most important thing is they want to feel good about doing that. And it's your job to make people feel good about these things, whether she's joining you for coffee, right, during the day, or whether she's coming home with you at night or at the end of a date. Or if you're in sales, it's about making someone feel good about this new vacuum cleaner that you bought, right? You're always selling someone on an experience. Okay. Next is screening. Screening is figuring out her logistics and figuring out if she's single. What are logistics? Logistics is, now this is, applies to daytime or nighttime. There are differences in a sense. And we'll talk more about daytime when we go out during the day over the next couple of days. But logistics is, figuring out, let's talk about night for a second. Who's she there with? Okay, how did she get there? Where's she coming from? Does she live around, like where does she live? Does she live around the corner, or is she visiting from Montreal with her friend, right? Does she have to be somewhere tomorrow? Is she working at 6 a.m. tomorrow because she's a paramedic? Or is she on vacation from Montreal and so she's out to have fun? Completely different, logistics, completely different headspace, etc. Or if it's during the day, it's like she's walking. Well, where is she walking? Is she casually shopping? Is she meeting her mom for lunch? Is she going to a dental appointment? Is she late for a job interview? Right? All very important. You want to work with as much information as you can. And your job is to kind of get that information out at some point over the course of the conversation. Sometimes sooner rather than later. It depends. But never necessarily in like a business-like fashion, right? You want to just kind of get that information. And the next one is single. Like, is she single? Or what is her status? And that's a tricky one. So let's talk about that for a second. Look, generally speaking, you want to know if a girl is in some form of a relationship. Just because, right? You just want to know because it's information to work with, just because, right? You want to know, the most important thing to know is if she is in a committed relationship, because that's when everything changes, right? Now, of course, there are many forms of committed relationships, right? There's one where she's very happy and in love. There's one where she might be very dissatisfied. There's one where it's long distance and it's very complicated. There's one where it's open. There's one where it's, some kind of a sugar daddy arrangement. That's also kind of serious, right? Now, of course, you're not going to find all that right away, but you have to admit that the more you know about her status or her situation, the more information you have to work with. And the more information you have to work with not only helps with trying to arrange for a time to see her or finding out whether or not you could even see her or pull her that night, but it also, and this is crucial, it also gives you more accurate feedback about your interactions, right? So the girl who was very flirty with me, or the girl who was very, brash with me, or the girl who was very dry with me, or the girl who was very indifferent with me, what were her logistics? What is her relationship status? Because that changes the entire dynamic. Sometimes if a girl is like super happy and in love, she might be like completely indifferent to talk to you. Or she might be so happy that she just wants to share her happiness and be super flirtatious and friendly with you. Or she might be having a fight with her boyfriend, and as a result, she's super emotionally unavailable. Or she's having a fight with her boyfriend, it's long distance, and she's upset that this and this happened, and so as a result, she really wants to connect with you and maybe have sex with you. Okay? It also tells you like more about, the interaction and what you're doing right. And so, look, when you're more advanced and you know exactly what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, and what you do and don't have time for, you want to find out this information sooner rather than later, mostly for the logistical elements. It's like, is something going to come out of this or not? Sure, maybe you can make a friend or something, you can connect with the girl, but you want to understand like logistically what's up. But when you're learning all this, what's even more important than that is having more information to get the most accurate feedback about the interaction, because you're learning. You're really learning. And let's say a girl has a boyfriend, right? Now, on the one hand, you can be like, well, she has a boyfriend, that's it, I gotta go. Well, first of all, it's not that simple. Second of all, but isn't it valuable if the girl is super flirtatious with you and you guys are really vibing? Sure, she's got a boyfriend, but isn't it valuable to know that you were able to build this really fun vibe with this chick? That's so much more valuable than whether or not you sleep with her. because that's a positive reference experience, which is going to help you grow. That's why I always say, look, when you're learning this stuff, whether or not, like within reason, whether or not she actually has a boyfriend, doesn't matter as much for your results as it does for your growth. Make sense? Not to mention that it teaches you when a girl, because look, sometimes girls will just say, I have a boyfriend just to fuck off or just to like fuck with you, because she might not even know whether or not you are attractive or manly enough or good enough for her. So she might just be like, I have a boyfriend. Now, or during the day, it's because you're a stranger. You know, it's like a knee-jerk reaction of an answer. You're a stranger. Like, oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm in a rush, or I'm sorry I have a boyfriend. Right? Now, what you want to learn to get good at is to being persistent, being a closer, knowing how to apply the right kind of pressure, the right amount kind of pressure, knowing how to persevere, knowing how to charm. And you do that sometimes when people present obstacles. And often those obstacles come in the form of, no, I have a boyfriend. No, I'm really late. No, I'm really not interested. Now, of course, there's only, you should apply the right amount of pressure. There's a threshold after which you come off as over-aggressive, too much. And you have to find that threshold. But that's how you learn to develop those skills. And I forgot to mention the being brazen is a really good quality. And brazen means shamelessly bold. There has to be an element of brazenness in your interactions. It's almost like you're entitling yourself a little to just like, come up and let's say a girl's out with her mom and you're just like, excuse me, I hate to interrupt what looks like a very fun mother and daughter day, but you looked absolutely adorable. I just have to come over and say hi. Mom, is it okay if I hit on your daughter for a bit? Now this is brazen. It's kind of shamelessly bold, but it's attractive. Funny note on girls with moms, it almost always goes well. Assuming you're not doing anything weird and you're acknowledging the mom. Because moms love to vicariously live through their daughters. Because the daughters are usually more youthful, they get more attention. The mothers, can only dream of having that kind of attention at a certain age. So they're always very excited for their daughters because they kind of get a taste of that vicariously. It's funny, but it's true. So, okay, so that's screening and logistics. So next we'll talk about conversation, the elements of having a good conversation, or what good verbals are like in an interaction or on a date. Okay. So, first of all, you want to, especially, and this is more for daytime, first interactions, you want to apply the 90-10 or 80-20 or 70-30 rule. And that essentially means that sometimes, and this could also be the case at night, and sometimes it could be the case during a date, even though during dates or at night, the interactions are generally more balanced. But essentially what this means is that you should be prepared to initially, or in some cases, do more of the talking to ease the girl ease her into the idea of speaking with a stranger. Like you approach a girl during the day, right? It's like, whoa, it's kind of unexpected. She's not necessarily in the headspace to talk to a stranger yet. Maybe she herself is a bit shy and reserved and all that stuff. So you can't put this pressure on the girl, or maybe she's not that interested initially and you have to kind of like build up to it. So you can't put this pressure on the girl to be doing all this talking. And guys often make this mistake, especially when they start asking her these like really complicated or burdensome questions. Like, so, what do you like to do for fun? It's like, this is too much thinking. So, what do you think about the political situation in the Middle East? I mean, it's more of a joke, but it's like, they'll ask her questions where like she's not even at ease yet, and they're expecting her to like think and like talk, and you have to kind of work towards that, right? So you got to be prepared to do more of the talking, just kind of sharing things, right? Like imagine you and your buddy are hanging out and you're just like, yeah, dude, so like, and we'll talk about like what things, you know, what things are appropriate to say and what is the threshold for good conversation, right? Or what is the bar, sorry, for good conversation? But yeah, if you and your buddy are just like hanging out and you're just like sharing things that are like mildly interesting. Yeah, I went to the gym and I did this thing and blah blah blah. You're not really like burdening him, like, because what happens is a lot of guys, and this is where this whole idea of a frame of familiarity comes in. When they meet someone, they start really treating it as like, okay, I met this new person, so I have to be like weird about the fact that we met. And this is new, so I have to ask questions. It's like, hey, what do you do? What are your passions? Where are you going? Okay, nice. And you like to do that? Nice. It's not organic. It doesn't flow. Now I get it. They're nervous. They're in their heads. But it's like, stop treating it immediately as something where, as a conversation where you have to get to know them and you have to treat them as a stranger. It's like, yeah, you do in some sense, right? That's the reality. But at the same time, just act as if they're like just another person that you've known for some time. And over time, you will ask those questions. You will get to know them, but don't like force it, right? You know, kind of like if you were at a party where, like a social circle party, right? I mean, even then people start to like freak out because it's somebody new and all that stuff. You know, they're not at ease socially and all that stuff. But if you're at a social circle party, you're not as like anxious. You're not as forceful with your interactions. Some people are, I suppose, but it's not the same as like you meet someone during the day, like a complete stranger. Then it's like, oh shit, I got to make this right. Okay. So 90, 10, 70, 30, assume a frame of familiarity. Questions into statements. So it's okay to ask questions. Don't make it all about questions. Don't make the questions like complicated or burdensome, right? Your job is to make it as easy on the person as possible. Okay. You could ask questions. You can make statements like, "Oh, that's a cool shirt. Did you get that in Europe? It looks very European." You know. Oh shit! I noticed they have these billboards everywhere advertising Honda. I saw the same ones in Montreal, but they had like a slightly different, I don't know, font that they used, or it was like the same ad, but it was a different colored car. Interesting why they chose black for Toronto and red for Montreal. Random observation, random statement. And then you can be like, oh, are you like a Honda kind of girl? You know, the Honda Civic, or the Acura back in the day. What was that Drake song? Back in the day, in the Acura days. Something like that. One of his old songs. Anyway, questions into statements, cutting threads, cutting conversational threads. So remember how when we talked about leading the conversation, I said you can kind of like navigate and talk about whatever you want to talk about, and you can cut threads. So if you guys are talking about something, it doesn't mean that you have to continue talking about something until it just dies out. You know, you could easily switch. Now, there are more opportune moments to switch the interactions. Like if she's, again, telling you about her mom's death, you're not just going to suddenly be like, damn, the wine here is good. But if she's telling you about like her ski trip and she kind of told you the bulk of it, and you can tell it's kind of like, so she's like, yeah, so like, da-da-da, I love skiing, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, damn, this wine is really good, right? Like you can kind of get a sense for it, right? Or let's say she's telling you something and you guys have both kind of agreed let's say you're having like a friendly little debate about something, right? I don't know, about Trump. Okay, it's friendly and it's kind of heated, and you're talking about it, and then she's like trying to make some kind of a point, but it's more like it's not as serious anymore. You can be like, more importantly, the pasta here is really good, right? So you're kind of transitioning out of it in like a playful, fun way, right? Or more importantly, where did you get that bracelet? It looks super Middle Eastern. Oh, it was on this trip actually that I went to Morocco, or I got it in Italy. Why do you think it looks Middle Eastern? So you're cutting threads, or you're cutting her off. Like more importantly, right? Again, at more appropriate times, and you'll get a feel for this over time for when it's more appropriate. Cutting her off, not answering or acknowledging everything she says. So again, if she's like pestering you about something, come on, tell me, da, da, da. Come on, tell me this, and you can be like, I want to get dessert. Completely disacknowledge. I want to get dessert. What do you want to eat for dessert? Okay. So again, you're not cutting her off when she's telling you about her mother's death, but she's pestering you about, I don't know, teaching her some. Let's say she wants you to teach her some words in Chinese. And she's like, come on, just teach me some words in Chinese. And you're like, I'm not that comfortable. My Chinese is pretty rusty. Come on, just tell me how to say, can I have some tea? And you're like, I don't want to do this. And she's like, just teach me some Chinese. And be like, you know what I want to do? I want some fucking dessert. So you see how that's a situation where it's kind of appropriate to just like, no, let's move on. So, qualifying and disqualifying. So what does it mean? So qualifying means you are complimenting her. You are giving her a reason as to why you're giving her a reason as to why you're having that interaction with her. Like, what it is you appreciate about her. So, for example, she tells you she speaks French. You're like, oh, shit, nice. You know, or she tells you she likes the Beatles. You give her a high five. Oh, shit, a Beatles fan. You know? I like that. A girl who likes the Beatles. I dig it. Right? So you're telling her, here are all these things that I like about you. Okay? And, of course, the more genuine, the better. You're not just saying that to butter her up or to make her feel good. Right? Like, you want to genuinely be connecting with people over things that you want to connect over. Right? If you like her sense of style, tell her you like her sense of style. Disqualifying her is letting her know things you don't like about her. You know, if she's an Aerosmith fan and you're like, really? How? How can you possibly like Aerosmith? Or how can you possibly like Nickelback? Girl, I'm taking points off. Or, you know, like, what are these Air Jordans you're wearing? You look like a hood rat. You know, like you say it in like a playful way, but it's like you still vibe with her, but like these shoes, I'm not feeling them, right? You're not like saying this to put her down. Like remember, there's a little bit of teasing. That's okay, or that's healthy amount of teasing for an interaction. So that's qualifying and disqualifying. Role playing. Role playing is something you can do. It's a very powerful thing that you can do in your interactions, and that is essentially you're trying to simulate situations where you and her are a unit, where she's imagining you and her doing fun things, crazy things, adventurous things, sexual things, right? Like you could say like, you know what, pack your bags, we're running off to Brazil tomorrow. Or you know what, we should start our own hot dog stand. And we'll blast music and you're gonna dance. You'll be the eye candy that attracts the customers, and I'll grill the hot dogs, right? You know, funny little role play situations. Or you're pretending to be a couple and you're being dramatic. How dare you sleep with my cousin? Why are you always such a flirt? You know, something like that. So, any questions with role playing? Okay. Free association. So free association means you're free associating with. You are. Okay, so you're jumping from topic to topic in your conversation, and you're free associating. So let's say you're talking about couches, and you get on the topic of this couch was made in Italy. And then from that, you start talking about how, yeah, like the design and like the fashion in Italy is really nice. I was actually on this trip to Milan. I did a university exchange to Milan, for my architecture internship. Okay, and blah 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 blah. And I worked with this guy, and they have this like, everyone dresses so well. And you get on the topic of coffee, and then from that you're like, you start telling her about this coffee shop that you visited in Toronto, which is really funky, and they have this arcade there. And then from the arcade, you start talking about what your favorite video game was when you were a kid. So you see how you're like organically free associating, and just like talking about topics as they come. Now, it helps, and this ties in with the next point, but it helps to free associate when you are lowering your bar for what you think is amusing or interesting or appropriate, or like the less stifled you are, the less in your head you are about what you should say. And of course, like, you do need to calibrate, and you need to be mindful of things you say. You can't just like talk about anything, right? But the less you're analyzing, and the more liberated you are, and the more you assume a sense of familiarity with the girl, the easier it'll be to free associate. The easier your brain will pick up on topics you can talk about. Right? So it's like, if we're talking about this couch, maybe you'll think of this sex pillow that you got, or that your friend, I actually do have a sex pillow that my friend brought from LA, right? And maybe you want to mention something about the sex pillow. Or you're talking about mattresses, right? And you're like, it's interesting, I was actually sleeping on this like sex pillow that my friend left when we just moved here. But maybe, right, and which is kind of funny and interesting, and you're sharing that, but maybe because you're so stifled and you don't think it's appropriate, and you think maybe she'll judge you, you don't mention that. So it'll be easier to free associate if your mind is less cluttered. Okay? So I think the bar should be sharing things that are mildly interesting or mildly amusing. Not everything you say has to be extraordinarily interesting or extraordinarily amusing. In fact, we said that the vibe is more important than the actual verbals. Right? The body language, the facial expression, all that stuff. So you lower your bar. And assuming a sense of familiarity helps with that. Like if you're just hanging out with your friend, you're not there like thinking, I have to really impress my friend with the super interesting fact. Right? You're just like, hey, this and this happened. Sometimes you do want to share interesting things with your friends. Look, feel free to share super interesting things. If you read some really cool article in, the Atlantic Monthly about mummies, and you really want to share that with her, feel free. It's bonus. Okay? So lower the bar. Pauses are okay. Pauses are okay. I can't stress it enough. Guys think that they have to always fill the silence, fill the void. They think it's awkward if there's sometimes a pause. Pauses are great. They give you room to breathe. They don't overwhelm. They allow the girl to fill the vacuum, to invest. Okay. And the last part is saying out of the box shit, random shit. Now, there are more appropriate times to do stuff like that, like maybe in a high energy or high stimulus nighttime environment, or maybe if you're having like a really fun date, you can suddenly just like be really goofy, or do something really silly. I don't know. Put some chopsticks in your hair. Well, if you have hair, I don't know. Something out of the box and weird. Okay. That's pretty much it. Now, a general note on loud venues and calm venues is in louder venues, like the first one we went to yesterday, you can't really talk much. You can't really have like a conversation. Not like in the second venue when we were up in that rooftop bar. So you can dance, you can make comments here and there in her ear. You can vibe with the girl, right? Whereas in a calmer venue like that bar that we were at, you can actually have a conversation. Okay, so something to keep in mind.